Let me show you how to make a raspberry shortcake biscuit. To make this biscuit we're going to need some polymer clay, sculpey, super sculpey I'm using here. I've rolled 2 pieces out to about 3 mil in thickness, just as you would if you were making an actual biscuit. We're going to use a couple of cookie cutters this time, it just makes it really easy. If you can get a little fluted style, that's really pretty. We're going to push that one straight into our clay, and it's just exactly the same as making an actual biscuit. So we'll pop that one out, and another one there. Remove that excess. Now, because we're sandwiching 2 halves together, we need the little hole cut out of the centre. Now you can cut that out with anything that you have available that's about the right size. You can make your jam centre quite large if you like, it's entirely up to you. I happen to have a cookie cutter that will do it, so I'll make sure that that's centred and just pop that one out. Let's lift that off and make sure we reshape that cookie. So now we have our 2 circles with our little fluted edges. I'm using a texturizer here just to round off the edges and put a little texture into the cookie, and you can go over that. You can use scrunched up aluminium foil is good. You don't have to have a specialty product. This is a taxidermy texturizer. You can use a kitchen scourer such as this one and it will do the same trick. So just go all over both biscuits. Now our next step is to make an attractive little pattern in the top of the raspberry shortcake. You can use anything you've got. I'm using a tool that has a little star shaped, sort of like a Phillips head screwdriver, and we're just going to make a little pattern around the outside of the biscuit. And any detailing that you do in the biscuits, that's why we do the texturizing. It looks fantastic when we paint them. It just gives something for the paint to grab a hold of and gives a really great 3D effect. So just using a Phillips head screwdriver gives a little star effect, which is really nice. So we've texturized the surface, not overdone that in this case because the raspberry shortcake biscuit is a fairly fine crumb biscuit. So now those 2 pieces can be popped into the oven. Super Sculpey is baked at around about 130 degrees, probably around about 20 minutes in the oven for these 2 pieces. We have our 2 baked and cooled raspberry shortcake cookie halves here. Now we're going to start with our painting. I'm using a folk art paint, just an acrylic. I'm using a Joe Sonia's that we have here in Australia. Any kind of folk art paint that's water based will be fine. Now I've made up a mixture. We're going to do a simple rub off method here. It's a very simple way of painting these biscuits. I'm using raw sienna, some Naples yellow and some burnt sienna and a little bit of white to lighten it up. Now the colour we're trying to mix is a beautiful golden shortbread colour. So have a look, mix it, have a look at some real bickies and you'll get an idea of the colour. Alright, so a fairly big brush, and load our brush up well. And mixture needs to be fairly liquid, and we're going to just cover the entire biscuit with the paint. Now we've made a small amount of texturizing on these 2, and we want to get the paint into all of those little tiny crevices, into your fluted areas there. Totally cover. It's a bit of a messy method, but it's well worth it because it's actually the easiest way to get a really good realistic effect. So we're going to fully cover that one, and the same with this one, and into your little holes. Make sure that you get as much paint down into those little crevices. Don't forget your inside circle. Fully cover. Now that both of your cookie halves are liberally coated, we're going to pop them onto a clean disposable cloth. I've made my cloth slightly damp. It's just a Chuck's wipe, something that is nice and clean and disposable. And what we're going to do is just pat the excess paint away. So we're not really going to rub at it, we just want that excess to go, and you'll find that there'll be a lovely two-toned effect left in your crevices. And we just treat them both the same way and just pop those aside to dry. Our cookie halves have had a couple of moments to dry, so that first coat is set. Now I'm going to make up a mixture. We're going to add the little browned areas on our cookie so that our cookie looks like it has been browned in the oven. So we're going to use, I've used raw sienna and burnt sienna together as a mix, and I'm going to get just a medium-sized round tip brush. Just get it nicely loaded with paint. Stipple, test it out. We don't want too much paint on our brush. And we're just going to apply very gently to the areas that would naturally be browned in the oven, just like a real cookie. There are areas that get browned and areas that aren't. It looks most effective around your edges, and you can see that by using a brush that's not too small, we get a nice flowing effect and no real harsh lines. So just apply that to both sides of your cookie, just to the areas that you can see would be browned. And that gives us a nice realistic effect. So same to this one, and then we let that one dry. Our final stage of painting on our raspberry shortcake cookie is to give us a little hint of icing sugar sprinkled on the top. Now you can be as heavy-handed with this as you like. I'm just going to give it a really light dusting, and you just need straight white, medium-sized brush, rounded tip. I've loaded my brush. I'm checking again that I haven't got too much on my brush, because it really is just a light stippling effect we want. You can always add more, but it's very hard to take it off. Alright, so just very lightly, and we go just around the inside circle and use a very light touch. So it's just a very light stipple, and you can just go around just in the lighter areas of your biscuit. I just find it just softens it off, gives it a beautiful 3D look, and it just looks like it's been lightly dusted. You can see I've hardly needed any paint there at all. Like I said, you can be more heavy-handed if you like, but I think that's just about fine. And then we pop the two pieces to dry. Let's assemble our raspberry shortcake cookie. We've got a mixture here of an epoxy 2-part resin, glue. Now I've been a bit tricky here and made a very clever jam out of our glue. We've got to glue them together anyway, and the simplest way to do that with the best effect is to make a nice red jammy mixture of our glue. Now the easiest way to do that, I've just mixed up a 24-hour epoxy and added probably around about 4 to 5 drops of normal printer ink into that mixture, stirred it all up, and we've got a lovely gooey jam mix. Now we're going to use a very old paintbrush and paint a nice layer of jam onto one half of our cookie. Not too close to the edges, because when we squeeze that cookie together we're going to get a bit of overflow. Now a little bit of overflow is nice, so it's going to look nice and real. So we just, at this point, we just want them to seal together. We can add some more in the centre once it's done. Pop that one aside. And we'll just pop our biggie on top. And we can see that we need to fill up our little jam hole. So we're going to do that with a fairly liberal amount of this lovely raspberry glue jam. That will fill up that centrepiece. Make that as full as you like. And I was just thinking with this one, while we were going through this process, wouldn't this be a fantastic looking biscuit if you were lucky enough to have the little star Vicky cut out shapes or heart ones for the centre. You could make all different scented shapes. There we go. Now that one will take 24 hours to set. We're just going to leave it sitting there, then we'll come back and finish off with a final matte glaze. So the finishing step for our raspberry shortcake cookie is just a matte varnish on the biscuit area. Nice soft brush, quite liberal with your varnish. This will stop any chipping or cracking. Be careful not to get that matte varnish on your centre jam area because it'll just dull that section. So there we have our completed raspberry shortcake cookie. Once that varnish dries, we'll have a nice satin matte finish, as you can see there. So just pop them on a little display plate and they're perfect. We'll see you next time.